Hello and welcome back to the Lore Raider. I'm sorry about the week gap, but I'm back in action, baby. Today we'll be talking about the top 7 Metroid villains in the entire series, in my opinion. This will include all the villains from the games as well as the manga material as well. Now, this is all just my opinion, of course, so, take that with a grain of salt, and if you have your own opinions, please leave it down in the comments below and we can discuss about it. I'd be happy to do that. Today's going to be a little bit more of a free scripting kind of a session. I'm just going to talk off the top of my head and tell you my thoughts about these villains. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, to define what a villain in my video means in terms of this video, I mean any being that has any story relevance that stands in the way of Samus's progress. And that's why at number 8, I had to put in, not an exception to this rule, or not really an exception, just an outlier to this rule, Adam Malkovich. Now, Adam Malkovich is an interesting character, a very, very hated character in the Metroid fanbase for a good reason. As in Metroid Other M, he really does a better job at hampering Samus than even characters like, SAX or Dark Samus did in their respective games. He doesn't let her use her suit abilities when needed. He, needlessly puts her in danger. She almost dies in the lava room because she couldn't use the Varia suit. He honestly acts more like a villain than most of the villains do. He didn't take a firm stance and try to find out who the mysterious deleter, that little plot that went nowhere in that game. And at the end of the game, as we all know, there's the infamous moment when he shoots Samus in the back, right when she's near a Metroid that could have very well killed her. And he admits he didn't even know his weapon would be able to kill the Metroid. So long story short, he earns this number 8 spot on the tier list. But moving on, we'll get into actual villains from the Metroid series. Next up is the Metroid Queen from Metroid 2 Return of Samus, or Samus Returns, whichever one you like to play, up to you. Now, this is again a very outlierish entry on this list, because the Metroid Queen isn't an intentional villain. But unlike Adam Malkovich, who styles himself to be one of the good guys, the Metroid Queen's more of a gray area entity. It's just trying to take care of its own species, its own hive, right? And it's caught in the middle of this political power struggle between the Space Pirates and the Galactic Federation, right? But it's this ever-looming presence when you go through the game, the original game, and even the newest game. It's this ever-looming presence because it gets angrier and angrier as you kill its children until you finally fight it in that big dramatic boss fight, right? That pays off with you fighting the baby Metroid, of course, right? Now, the reason the Queen Metroid is above Adam Malkovich on this list is because, unlike him, she A, didn't style herself to be a hero, and B, she actually had an actual boss fight. And I do want to consider, boss fights in this tier list, right? So I think those two factors combined place the Metroid Queen at number 7. At number 6, we have the SAX. Now, the SAX is a villain that I really enjoy from Metroid Fusion, and I won't tell anyone that I think the SAX is, a very compelling entity in the Metroid universe, right? It's this big, intimidating thing that stalks Samus from room to room. You're pretty much powerless against it for most of the game, and it represents Samus at the height of her power. And from a meta context, it's supposed to be that Fusion Suit Samus should feel fear for it, because Samus should, for once, feel what her enemies must feel whenever she's around. Very helpless, very powerless. And I think that's great about SAX. But there are some weaknesses, I think, that are with it too. In terms of the narrative thread, the SAX, or the X-Parasite in general, is really contingent on can it get off the BSL station, and you never once feel like it can do that, because Samus is running around. She's allegedly successful in her mission. She's keeping it off station, right? It doesn't seem feasible that it can get off world, right? It just seems like a in the present threat, whereas its fellow doppelganger Dark Samus, for example, had was doing much bigger things on a galactic scale compared to the SAX. And I think I would have loved to have seen the X plan move a little bit forward to increase the tension, in my opinion. But the boss fight with the SEX was great, if a little exploitable if you knew what to do, but was still a great thing, and I think at number 6, the SEX is in a very comfortable position here. At number 6, we have Dark Samus. Now, some of you might be surprised, even outraged, that Dark Samus is this low, and I can understand that, but I think that when you hear my argument, you'll understand why. And make no mistake, Dark Samus is in a very comfortable position. Number 5, she's one of my favorite villains in the Metroid franchise, don't get me wrong. She made it to the top 5. Now, what do I like about Dark Samus? I think she's a better version of the SAX in terms of her narrative, her plot, and her threat level, right? And her threat level, which is mostly about her plot, she's, going on these, multi-planet galactic, campaigns. She's got the Galactic Federation proper involved in her, in fighting her. She's taken over the space pirates, which is something that's never been seen before. She's a real threat in terms of what's at stake, right? You feel that she's a real threat to the galaxy at large. To Samus personally, she has this very unique thing that only Ridley maybe shares this, in that she's Samus's rival, right? Ridley is, Samus' classical rival, they meet all the time, but Dark Samus and Samus being two sides of the same coin, they really have a real rival mentality, and unlike the SAX, who's representing Samus at the peak of her power, and Samus is supposed to be feeling exactly how her enemies are supposed to feel, Samus and Dark Samus are always at parity with each other. So at the Prime games, and it makes for an interesting rivalry, it makes for an interesting narrative, and that's what I love about Dark Samus. Now, what is wrong with her? What's keeping her from the top 3, right? From 4, 3, 2, and 1? Well, in my opinion, it's just the level of cruelty, right? Dark Samus suffers a little bit from her lack of dialogue, I think, and she doesn't get a lot of chances to show her absolute ruthlessness, right? Now, she is evil. She does kill Rundus. She kills Gandrada. She does all that stuff in the games, right? But for example, when she shot them all and knocked them unconscious, right? When Samus got her PD suit, she could have killed them and she just left, right? We don't see her committing war crimes, right? When she's doing it, she's mostly just trying to further the Phazon's goals, right? She has the same almost animalistic, goal as the X-Parasite or the Metroids, right? Just with a little bit more finesse. And I really think that the later entries on this list are going to ramp up that deliberate evil, right? And get away from the more animalistic evil, right? But again, Dark Samus should be very happy at number 6 on this list. At number 4, we have the Dominion from the Samus and Joy manga. Now, the Dominion's a very interesting force, right? They're this evil warmongering corporation, right? They really profit off the wars going all over the galaxy, right? And they go out of their way to instigate that war for obviously more profit. Now, they bump into Samus Aran quite a lot at the back half of the original manga, and then they play a supporting role in EX, right? But I want to talk about their first roles, and they're really built up perfectly. You see, they first show up when they're, they give this rival hunter like a suit very similar to Samus' own suit, and they try to frame her, and it becomes an epic battle. That's the first red flag. Second red flag, Joey makes friends with this killer robot, right, that goes in and out of control, right? He's a murderer, but he's defective, right? And it ends with him having to die. And, it shows that, how cruel can you get that you make this sentient being, this uncontrollable murderer against their will, right? It's just horrible. And then, eventually we get to their main compound, right? And they've got prisoners that they test their live ammunition on. They do these sick, Hunger-esque games. And it's really deplorable. And I want to see that more from the previous runs on this list. Dominion really got that. From a manga that has, this kid as a secondary character, right? They somehow nail just the vileness of this organization. And I think that alone, plus their narrative consistency and the threat they posed, puts them at number 4 on this list. Now for perhaps the most underrated villain in all of Metroid history, and that is Greed the Space Dragon from, again, the Samus and Joy manga, namely the EX series. Now, he's excellent. Let me just put it that way, he's excellent, right? He has the same evilness that you get from all the other great villains, right? But here's the thing, he actually does more harm to Samus, arguably, than any other villain. Right at the beginning, he manages to trap Samus, 1, and 2, he takes all of her powers away from her, right? Takes them all. And she has to go on this wild goose chase to get all her abilities back to stand a chance. And no other villain has done that. I mean, that already puts his threat level above anyone else. And not only that, what I love about this manga is that they let their villains get what they want at times. And with Greed, he wants to completely reshape the entire universe, right? And he was seeking this power that was going to let him destroy and wipe clean the universe as a whole. And he actually gets it. He actually manages to get right to the end of his plan. He gets the ability to create these black holes, and while his power consumes him, when you look at that and say, holy fuck, he actually did it. He actually got through to his plan. And, Metroid has some great villains, but they just don't succeed. The SAX died before it could ever get off the station. Dark Samus died only infecting a couple of planets that went away immediately after her death. Adam Malkovich was just an asshole. But Greed was an asshole who got results. And that's what I love to see. He got results. And that's why he makes it to number 3 on this list. And I beg you, anyone who hasn't read the manga, please read it because it is excellent. I gotta say, I really debated where to put these last 3 villains on this list, okay? And after much debate, I had to put Mother Brain as number 2, the OG villain. Now, she has, unlike Greed, who's more of a physical threat, he was a physical threat to Samus, Mother Brain was an emotional threat, a mental threat. She knew Samus ever since Samus was a little kid, honestly, because they lived together on planet Zebes, right? And then Mother Brain betrayed the Chozo, right? Sold them out to the pirates and then gained control of it, right? And so you can think of the first Metroid game, right? As Samus's sort of revenge quest, honestly. In memory of her film that she lost. And I think Zero Mission kind of references that with the Chozo boss fight at the end, and that little scene with her drawing the picture. I really think Mother Brain really peaked right there with that emotional payoff, right? And then otherwise with her character, she doesn't really do much, she doesn't really say much, honestly, but she is responsible for perhaps the single best moment of all of Metroid history, and that is, of course, her final battle in Super Metroid, right? And what hasn't been said about this scene that hasn't been said, right? What can I even add to that, right? It's just the emotional climax. What I would say is that the first arc of the Metroid games, right? From Metroid 1, Metroid 2, and now Super Metroid, it really pays off. The Super Metroid sacrifices itself to save Samus. Samus clobbers Mother Brain with the super laser. It's just a great scene overall, right? And I know that Mother Brain suffers when it comes to her actual personality in the games, but it's that scene and it's that emotional connection to Samus that most villains do not have that I think puts her at number 2. Coming at a close number 1 is the one and only Ridley. And now I really weighed this decision back and forth for quite a while. And, let me get his weaknesses out of the way first. He loses way too much to Samus, in my opinion, that it lowers his threat level, right? And you begin to question, right, like, why is he in charge of the space pirates? Like, maybe I'll do a video in the future about the full history of the space pirates, but you really start to notice that he's not that great of a commander of the space pirates. That's probably why Mother Brain was in charge of the organization officially. He's just a commander, right? But still, that aside though, everything else about him is great. He has the emotional weight that even Mother Brain can't beat. Ridley slaughtered Samus' family right in front of her when she was 3 or 4 years old, right? And Samus has carried that with her through the rest of her life, right? And has used it as fuel to fight the space pirates. She has real anger toward them. And then in the rest of the games, he's this constant tether to why she hates the space pirates and to her past that you just can't get rid of. She beats him in the original Metroid. He comes back. She beats him in the Prime games. She comes back. She beats him again in Metroid 2. He comes back. She beats him again in Super Metroid. He comes back as a clone. And say what you want about Other M, right? I don't think they should have had that PTSD, but I do think they should have shown her anger at his very existence, his survival, his unwillingness to let her move on from that time period. I think that's what he represented. I think he did it extremely well. And again, even the SAX, even the X themselves, utilize Ridley as a way to, block Samus. She just can't get away from this guy even after he's dead. And I think that's the other side of the coin. He loses a lot, but there's a meaning behind his constant appearances, which is so great. And then, of course, we can't talk about Ridley without talking about the fact that he has consistently the best boss fights in the series. We have the Super Metroid Ridley fights, which everyone considers to be excellent. We have Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime 1. That was great. We have Proteus Ridley. Some consider that to be the best Metroid boss fight of all time. We have Metroid Other M's Ridley, which is probably the only good thing about that game in general. We have the memory that is Neo Ridley from Metroid Fusion. I mean, there's just so much right with this character that he has to go in number 1. And of course, he's a reference to Ellen Ripley, of course, so there's that too. But regardless, he is at number 1. Well, that's the end of my tier list. That took me a little while to figure out, actually. Those are some really close placements in my opinion. But let me know your thoughts down below. I'm really interested to hear your comments. Now, recently I've noticed my Metroid videos have been blowing up, and I've gotten some lovely comments from all of you viewers, and I do really appreciate you sticking by me. And as a small channel, seeing those comments means a lot to me. So again, thank you for your kind patronage. If you like my content, why not subscribe and give me a like? And by the way, I have Tomb Raider content too, so if you're interested in that, please check it out. I worked hard on that last video. It hasn't really taken off, so if you could check it out, that'd be most appreciated. Also, I'm sorry about the delay, like I said, of this video. It's been 2 weeks. I gotta tell you that my electronics are malfunctioning, so I won't be able to release the kind of quality I'm used to getting until I get this fixed. So expect videos like this, and I know the audio had a few mistakes in there, and I'm sorry. I'm doing the best I can, and hopefully I can get back to normal as soon as I can. But until then, take care and be safe.